Randy, we've known for the last couple of years, and we've actually been to see Randy a couple of times for our own health and well-being, and always been impressed by his insights. And I've had a number of discussions with Randy regarding BlackOxgen, the energy levels in BlackOxgen, how he talks to people, his clients, his patients about it, and then, kind of his best practices for using the product with children, the elderly, etc. So I'm really happy that you get a chance to meet Randy today. He is a holistic health practitioner, and he specializes in measuring and suggesting optimal approaches to strengthen physical systems and internal energy balance as the basis for achieving optimal natural health. And this is a picture from a couple of years ago. As most people in BlackOxgen, he's growing his hair. And so there's something going on here, BlackOxgen and everybody growing their hair. But welcome this morning, Randy Vroon. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate the time to share a bit about how BlackOxgen and the Fulvic Minerals are making a transformational change in people's health.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, Randy. And I know there's a great group of people here, really from all over the U.S. and Canada and some beyond. So let's dive in today. Let's talk about a couple of the topics you and I were discussing the other day.
Sounds good. So one of the first ones that Rob mentioned is wanting to get a bit of a perspective on energy levels. How does BlackOxgen differentiate from other supplements that you can get in the market today? So one of the things that I noticed early on when I started to check BlackOxgen, which was New Water, they called it New Water at the time, so that's sort of an alias for it. I was checking for how good a supplement is. So whenever I'm checking supplements for clients, sometimes they want to know how good a supplement is before they buy it. I always check for how good it is as a product, and I measure for what the vital energy is of a product. And the vital energy would be similar to what we think of as chi. That's the vital energy or living energy in our bodies. Well, living plants have a vital energy too. And in fact, a perfect, organic, undamaged, unchemically injured plant measures 11,000 vital energy. So that's the highest you can go, is 11,000. And prior to working with BlackOxgen, I'd never actually run into a perfect product. There would be products that measured maybe in the 10,500 range, but never in the 11,000. And so BlackOxgen Organics New Water, the powder or the tablet, they measure 11,000, and they are 100% good for the body. So I wanted to give you a bit of context as to what that means compared to stuff that you probably see out there in the market today. And one of the first ones maybe to think about is the pharmacy brands. So the stuff that you can get at a pharmacy, I'm not going to mention the brand names, but a pharmacy grade product typically measures less than 10% good for the body. So yeah, that's not great. So 10% good means 90% not good, which means that your body has to struggle to process and dump 90% of it, which means you're not getting most of it. Pharmacy brand products are less than 300 vital energy out of 11,000, so there's almost nothing in it from an energy perspective, so it's not alive. Generally, they're synthetics, and it's less than 10% absorption. And the absorption rate is pretty important because if you're spending money for a product and you're only getting 10% or less, a lot of it's just being thrown out. A typical health food store product, and they're still a business as well, so just like a supermarket has junk food in it as well as good food, a health food store has stuff that's not the best as well as everything that goes up to the top. So a typical store would have 10 to 50% good products. So typical stuff that you find on the shelf of non-professional brands would be up to 50% good for the body, 300 to 2,000 vital energy, and 10 to 30% absorption. So still not terrific. You are getting some, but not great. If you move to a professional brand, and typically these are products that they have behind the counter, so you have to ask for them, and that's because they make less profit on those. There's lots of profit on the typical stuff that's out there, but for professional brands, they might only make 30% at most. So professional brands are about 80% good, typically. They could be a little bit higher, but 80 to maybe 85, 90. They're about 5,000 vital energy, and they're 30 to 40% absorption. So you're still only sitting at 40% absorbable for a professional brand. And there are some products out there that are a bit higher than that in professional brands, but that's the general. If you look at organic food, so this would be natural supplements that are made of organic foods that are compressed into caplets, and there's multiple brands out there that do that. Naturopathic products would also fit into this area. They would be up to 98% good for the body. They're made with organic foods. 9,000 vital energy and 70 to 98% absorption, depending on the brand and what it is. So you're looking at a much higher level there. Naturopathic products you can't actually get yourself. You have to go to a naturopath for them. And I've measured a number of these for some of my clients who see naturopaths regularly as well. And they have me test the products. And 99% of the time, their products are excellent, very, very excellent. And we don't get them in the stores. You can't get them anywhere. It has to be done through a naturopath. So their products can easily measure in the 9,000, 10,000 vital energy range. Then you get to BlackOxgen, and it is like the pristine. This is from the bogs, right? It's protected nutrients that are under layers of bog material. Bogs, the top layer they used to burn in places like Scotland in the early days. That's how people would make their fires, out of the top layer of peat in the bogs. So down at the bottom layer, that's where all the nutrients are. That's where all the plant matter broke down through a humification process and preserved. So that is perfect material, never been damaged, not exposed to oxygen either. And it's 100% good, 11,000 vital energy and 100% absorption. So as a nutrient product, there is no product I have found that matches the New Water product. There are many forms of fulvic acid as well. Most of them are coming from fossilized material, and they use chemicals to actually dissolve it so that people can take it. Some of them are made from forest, soil materials, etc. But again, those are depleted as well. So all of those are still measuring in the middling range between a typical store and a professional brand. Up to 50%, some of them maybe 80%, but 5,000 vital energy at the most. And they're all still dramatically deficient on the trace minerals because they just don't exist in our soils anymore. We've damaged our all of our food-bearing soils in the last 100 years so dramatically that there is no soils that actually bear good food anymore. They've been too damaged. So that gives you a bit of a perspective on the BlackOxgen organic fulvic material that is available as a powder or a tablet or even in a coffee pod form. It doesn't measure quite as high in the coffee pod form, and that's simply because there is coffee in it. Right? So they're using a good coffee, but it's not perfect. So it measures a little less. It's around the 9,000 vital energy range. But still, all of the minerals are in it. And that is the key consideration when you're looking at the fulvic minerals. It is so I'm going to talk about a bit BlackOxgen now. This is the second talking point. It is the building block for health. So all of us are dealing with different aches and pains in our body in different areas. And when we go back down to the basics as to where that's coming from, our body is starving for building blocks. It can't repair itself. And the problem is that we don't get it in our foods anymore. 100 years ago, our bodies were absorbing nutrients from the bloodstream at over 90%, 95%. In the last 2 to 3 decades, it's at 30% or less. That means even if you digest your food well, you're only getting 30% at best that actually gets out of the transport system, which is the bloodstream, into the cells. It just can't make it. That means that even perfect foods, you're still losing 70% of it because your body can't get it out of the transport trucks in the bloodstream. So organic fulvic material, which is in the New Water, that actually transports nutrients from the bloodstream into the cells. And so when a person goes on BlackOxgen Organics, the first day even, when you take your first dose, it jumps dramatically. So most people that are ill, you could be sitting at between 10 and 15% absorption. As soon as you take your first dose of new water, BlackOxgen Organics, it will jump from that to 30. The next day, it will likely be at close to 50%. And then you will be starting to absorb everything that you eat better. So fulvic acid actually transports nutrients from the bloodstream into your body cells all over the body. And then it takes the waste products from the cells and it brings it back into the bloodstream. And the bloodstream goes back through the liver and the kidneys and it flushes it out. So fulvic acid isn't just for nutrients, like it is a massive building block, foundational. It also cleanses the body. And so it is foundational for enabling your body to clean. And in today's times, that's one of the most significant things that you could be thinking about. How do you get your body to detoxify? You need to enable it to move the waste products, the poisons. So when we live, our body is metabolizing nutrients and then it's giving off waste products. It happens in our brain, it happens in every cell of our body. And if it gets stuck inside the cells and stuck in the tissues and it can't get out, then our body will start getting inflamed. And then you start having the weaknesses that bring in disease. So our body needs to properly detoxify. So that is one of the most significant things to be talking about with the new water, the BlackOxgen Organics, is that it first of all has the foundational building blocks for health. So all of the minerals. So typically when you hear about minerals, people are talking about, the macro minerals, your magnesium, potassium, your calcium, your sodium, things that you use a lot of. And those still exist in our foods. They're macro minerals. They're stuff that we use a lot of every day. But the micro minerals, the trace minerals, those are, I guess you'd call that the secret sauce for how our body repairs itself. Each one of those operates different systems in the body. And when we get deficient on them and deplete, especially through stress, so our lifestyles today are heavily stressed, we are depleting our reserves. And once we lose minerals, trace minerals, those parts of the body will stop functioning. And it has to kick back to a backup system because it doesn't have the minerals to operate the system anymore. Think of our bodies like a huge clockworks with thousands of different gears in it. All of these trace minerals are key gears that fit into different systems in the body, and they enable them to process and do their job. And once they're missing, that system falters, and then it starts to fail. And then when it fails, then the systems that clean our body and metabolize energy, et cetera, they start to become deficient, and then they start to fail. And then our body starts reflecting symptoms to the surface that we see, but everything's starting way down here at the bottom, and then it slowly ripples its way up to the top. So one of the things that's significant when I work with a client, I do a bunch of tests, and among the primary tests that I do, the first one is checking for the most damaged and most damaged organ and gland that's keeping your body weak. I measure your gut health and your adrenals, your pancreas for sugar regulation, your stress levels, and your physical and emotional stress levels and emotional systems. I measure your energy systems, your meridians, and then as part of this, foundationally, it's checking your minerals. So it's checking for your macro minerals. I'm checking for your trace minerals. I'm checking specifically your calcium and magnesium and potassium levels because those are so foundational to your body's operating every day. Calcium is stored in your bones, so it's probably the biggest repository of minerals in calcium forms in your bones. And when your muscles contract for you to do anything, your heart does a lot of muscle contractions. Calcium enables the muscles to contract. Magnesium enables the muscles to release. Now, calcium and magnesium are used for other things too, but for every muscle in your body, calcium contracts, magnesium releases. And we are often very deficient on things like magnesium and calcium. So I measure the mineral levels, and I measure how much deficiency there exists in the body and what's missing. And what I noticed when I first started with BlackOxgen is that people that I measured as having pretty good mineral levels, around the 80%, after BlackOxgen, through a crisis that my wife had, I started measuring at the tissue level instead of just in the bloodstream. In the bloodstream, her mineral levels were good. In fact, for all of us, if we're eating foods, our mineral levels are good, at least the macro ones, but they're not getting in the tissues. And so she had a health crisis that landed her in the hospital because her tissues were so deficient that her lungs couldn't operate. And they couldn't find it. Went to the hospital, they did their tests, they said, blood tests look fine. That's when I started to measure deeper at the tissue level. And in fact, at the tissue level, her lungs were sitting at 20% for some key trace minerals. Selenium was one of the key ones for her. And so it wasn't getting into the tissues. She took her first dose that night when I first got my first dose after the kickoff, our original kickoff. The Obeys actually gave me a couple of samples of it, and I gave that to my wife that night after I did a bunch of tests. And the next morning, her levels jumped from 20% up into the 40+%, and the crisis was over. So the crisis that she was in, where she was just barely managing to operate, that was stopped because all of a sudden, the nutrients, the selenium in her blood, which was at 90, it got into the tissues, and the tissues were able to start doing their work again. The muscles could start functioning again. So very, very significant minerals. If we haven't got minerals, we can't manufacture some of our vitamins. We can't do any of the processes in the body. They are like the most significant nutrient source that we need. And it used to be there 100 years ago before our aggressive agricultural practices with all of our chemicals and fertilizers and glyphosates, etc. But now it's a very hard thing to get because it doesn't exist in foods, because it's not in the soil. So where do you get it? You go to a pristine source in the bogs where it's protected away from oxygen, and it has all of the nutrients from the Canadian Shield. And Canada apparently has the highest level that they found in the world in the 30+ range of fulvic acid and humic acid. So we have a gold mine in Canada that is now being provided to other places as well. So foundational for health. Cell absorption, I can't stress enough how significant that is. I don't know of anything that has ever addressed cell absorption except the new water, and that's the fulvic acid that's in it. So that enables the body to actually transport nutrients out of the bloodstream into the cells. And once you do that, all the good things that you're probably doing already today, where you're trying to eat well and you're doing exercise, etc., you're losing most of it because your bloodstream is the transport truck. It's like the 401 highway or the main Canada 1 highway going across Canada. And all these trucks are in it carrying all your nutrients, and it's not stopping. It's not getting the stuff off at all. As soon as you take new water, it starts to take the nutrients off every stop and bring it into the tissues, and then take all the junk that's left in your body and pump it back into the trucks to bring it out to the waste depots, which is your liver and your kidneys. So very, very foundational. I would say it's transformed health for many of my clients because that has always been the challenge. I didn't even realize how bad it was until I started looking at the cell level. And people that looked like they were 80% minerals, they were sitting in the 40s and 50s at the actual cell. I think the third thing we were talking about, Rob, was discussing a bit about best use practices. So I'm going to chat a little bit about that. Today, with new water, we have several forms of it. We have it in a powder form, which is very flexible. You can use it for poultices and masks and even a bath, etc., to let the fulvic get into your tissues from the outside, as well as when you drink it, it goes on the inside to work in the cells. You have it as tablets, which is the blister packs now, and you still have it as coffee in the pods. So I'm going to talk about the tablet and the powder form. So one of the key things that I deal with in my practice with clients is I'm often dealing with people that have an illness. They have a problem. That's why they're coming to me. There's something that doesn't make any sense. They can't get a solution for it. So they have an illness. They have a problem to deal with. And so I'm always checking when I test them, and I do all the tests I already talked about, and I check minerals, how much of the new water can they take initially? And one of the first best practices is that you have to be, if you're ill, you have to start slow, because reactions to new water are almost exclusively from something that's too much too fast. It's not because they have a problem with the fulvic minerals. It's because their body is so fragile and so sensitive to change that if you do anything too rapidly, their body will react and they will assume it's the new water or the black oxygen, and they will stop it because it feels bad. They could have reactions in their gut. Often it's with digestion. They could get headaches, which is part of health crisis where the body's doing that cleanse. It's taking stuff out and dumping it into the bloodstream. Well, if you do too much dumping into the bloodstream and your kidneys and liver aren't working well yet, you're going to pollute the stream and you're not going to feel well anywhere, right? You're going to ache, have headaches, all kinds of stuff. So the key is if you're ill, you must start slowly. And what I suggest when a person is not doing well to begin with, you do alternate days and you monitor how your body's responding. So regardless of what you decide you want to take to start with, how much, always start at least with a day in between. That way you can actually monitor yourself in the very beginning, see how your body's responding, and if you're getting any of these reactions in the bowel or with severe headaches, etc., you slow down. That's your immediate trigger if you're having reactions to cut it. And immediately, whatever you're doing, cut it in half. Take half of what you're taking now and maybe even break it into every third day. So not every second day, but every third day. And let your body get used to the fact that it's starting to cleanse. Let your body start strengthening because it takes time. It's taken time for your body to decline, and it takes some time for the building blocks to start repairing organs and glands and systems in the body. So you need to give your body time to start adapting to the fact that it's actually no longer going to be malnourished, lack of minerals. It's actually going to be getting what it needs, and you just need to give it time to build itself up again. So doing the alternate day and doing half of what you were doing, if you have any reactions, immediately cut it in half and stretch out the time to maybe every 3 days and let your body adapt. Over time, the goal is that you would be doing some new water every day because it is your foundational nutrient. It is what allows not only your body to get all of the trace minerals that you need, it also allows your body to do that transport into the cells and take the waste products out of the cells. And you need time to get all that waste out. And you want to do it slowly at a pace that your body can keep up, right? So that's the key. So for some general guidelines, I have some for ill people or young people or very old people. We'll talk about the generally healthy people after, but these are the ones that are in crisis and we're trying to help them. So we need to enable their body to get to a state where it can start doing the repair and build. So if you're very ill, my suggestion would be you start at 1/5 of a tablet. So those blister packs, if you're ill, start with 1/5 of it. Somehow cut it into fifths or crush the whole thing up with a mortar and pestle and take 1/5 portion of it. And then do that every other day and then monitor how your body's responding. The goal would be to take more as your body gets well, but to start, you got to get it to start working again. If you're very young, that would mean under 6 years old, you'd be looking at 1/10 of a tablet. Now, this was simpler to do when you just had the liquid. We used to have liquid in the very beginning, but there were problems with bottles and freezing, etc. So that's not available now. But so 1/10 of a tablet, or if you're doing the powder, 1/10 of a teaspoon. So that's giving you about 1 milliliter, approximately. And you do that every other day for a child. If you're talking about a baby, like a very young infant that's having problems, you want just a few grains. We're not talking tenths, we're talking like 50ths. You just need a little bit. So that would mean crushing it up or taking some of the powder and just taking a tiny pinch, putting it in a fluid of some type. Maybe it's applesauce, maybe it's a little bit of juice or water. You always want to dilute it, at least for the ill, the weak, or the old. Always dilute, because the body, if it's deficient, it's going to grab everything it can in the first place you put it. And if you don't dilute it, it will take everything in your mouth and nothing else will get anything. And the goal is to distribute the thing so that the whole body gets some. So Consider always putting it in a fluid, a drink, maybe a smoothie, applesauce, something. But whatever portion you take, plan to consume it all within probably 15 minutes. So don't put a little pinch in 3 liters of water, because you won't get enough, right? And it's going to oxidize as it's exposed to air. So put it in a small portion of fluid and then take it all down, or drink it all, or eat it all within 5 to 10 minutes, 15 at the most. For the very old, and I'm talking for people that are in their 70s or 80s, maybe if you feel old, it could be in the 50s or 60s. I felt old probably a couple of years ago, where arms and legs were never healing anymore. So I felt old. I don't anymore. They don't hurt at all. They're repaired. They work well. I can do work and I don't have pain anymore. But for very old people that are in the 80s perhaps, or 90s, again, you've got to be very slow and small amounts to begin with, because if their body reacts in any way to something foreign, even if it's a good thing, they're going to stop, and then you won't be able to help them. So consider them like a child in the amount that you give, just a small little bit, and do it every other day, and let them sort of work up. And for an older person, you probably are going to be working up over the course of a couple of months, where you go every other day, just this little bit, whether it's a pinch. If you have a person that is very anxious all the time about what they take, they tell you that their body has irritable bowel syndrome or something where they react to anything, that's your trigger that you have to be extremely careful with them, because psychologically they could react just because they think it's something new. So it has to be so tiny that psychological's not even involved here. And you have to get, sort of have to work past themselves, where they can be their own worst enemy, and get them to be taking just a few powders. See, there's no problem. Take it for a few days, and then you just bring it up slowly. Even that little bit starts bringing the body to function. Fulvic is like perfect food. You get 100% of it. It is 100% absorbable, and it is perfect in energy, like 11,000. It is perfect. So they will get everything you give them, and if you start slow, you can help them bridge themselves up to a point where they can get very good, get very well. If you're dealing with somebody that is well already, let's say we have teenagers, like they get pretty aggressive in workouts, etc. They can already start at something like a full tablet, right, at a time, right? And if they do some over-the-top extreme workouts, let's say once or twice a week, that's where you might consider for them, in those situations, giving them a second dose when they're doing that extreme workout. So doing it after they've done the workout, they get another dose, so that they've got the building blocks to repair, because when they do extreme workouts, the muscles are being torn. That's how they build themselves. Everything is full of toxins and lactic acid from all the muscles, and you need to clean it, right? And so they need extra in those times. For the general populace that are doing well to begin with, you can start with a regular dose, like a full, for people that don't want to change their habits, maybe they want to take the coffee pods, right? It's simple, it's convenient, it has the nutrient in it. Just take a pod a day. And if they have some extremely stressful days, then they can take a second pod that day. But they would typically just use 1 pod a day. One of the keys for getting your body health back where you want it to be is consistency. If you take New Water or BlackOxgen Organics, once or twice a week sporadically, you're not going to make yourself, you're not going to have the building blocks to enable your body to heal. You have to be consistent. It's similar like exercise. If you've got back problems, you slowly do things like cross crawls to build the muscles. And the secret is in the consistency, that you consistently build the muscles. You don't overdo it. Let the muscles heal, build stronger, and build up. So consistency, whatever it is, if in the beginning you're doing it alternate days, always do it alternate days. And then over time, you'll get to every day. If cost becomes an issue for any of you with taking New Water, and while you can argue that it is a foundational component for health, there are some realities that people have where cost is an issue. So give them the powder maybe. They just need a little bit. Anything will help. So, but they have to be consistent. So if a person doesn't have much money, they need new water to give them the building blocks. Then give them powder, have them put 1/8 of a teaspoon, which is about a quarter dose, in something every day for themselves. And one of those packets, that's going to last them, instead of 30 days, it'll last them 4 months. All of a sudden, the cost becomes affordable for them, and their body gets better. And as their body gets better, they'll see the value. They can start making priority changes for themselves because they see the value that they're getting. And then they will start increasing the amount they take to speed up their healing. But you got to get them there. And so the thing is to listen to our clients. And so if they don't have much money, everybody can prioritize this for themselves. I've got clients that have practically no money, and they still come and get tested once in a while because their health matters. If you haven't got your health, you can't do anything. You can't help your grandkids. You can't help your kids. You can't work. You can't do anything. So you just have to get them to the point where they see the value and they let their body start healing, and it will do the healing. If you do go on new water and you start with a standard dose of just 1 serving as an adult, let's say as a healthy adult, your cell absorption jumps to about 55%. Over a long period of time, we're talking a year plus, it will start rising from that point, because I've got some clients I've tested now over a year long, and they were just taking a single dose, and they go up to the 80%. But after about a month and a half of being on a single dose, that means one of those coffee pods or a tablet, if you want your body to jump to the next level of getting repairs faster, healing faster, then you can go to a second dose in the day. I would suggest that nobody takes new water right before bedtime, right? Because there's a lot of things that are happening. You don't want to stimulate yourself before you go to bed. So at the latest, it would be in the late afternoon or potentially at supper time, but nothing after supper. Give your body time to cycle down through its circadian rhythms to go back to sleep at night. But if you take a second dose, you will within a couple of days jump to the 90s, right? 90% absorption from the cells. And that is huge. That means that everything else you're doing suddenly jumps up another level. You're getting not just 55%, 90% plus transport from your bloodstream into your cells. But remember, if you're even healthy, jumping to that immediately, I would suggest against it, right? Give your body time to adjust. It's very likely, unless you know what your body's health is. Like if I tested a person, I could tell them, right? Like your typical people's bodies are at 50%. Your liver's at 50%. Your kidneys are at 50 or less. And that's not strong enough to actually deal with massive toxins coming from your tissues all at one time. So if you take too much too fast, you're not going to feel well. And that's not a good thing for you. So start at a regular dose for, say, 6 weeks. And after 6 weeks, then jump to the next level. And again, considering cost again, this is something that helps your health. Once you've been at this second level of being at 2 servings a day for about a month and a half or 2 months, you could go back down again to a single dose and you stay at 90 to 95% cell absorption. That's what we do. We're at a single dose again. We were up for about 2 months at double dose. Now we're back at, I take the equivalent of a coffee pod worth every day, and my cell absorption's 95%, and it stays there consistently. If I was to do extreme workouts, I work in the yard, I do a bunch of pruning, I immediately take a second dose that day because my body needs more to repair itself, right? So that's how you can adapt based on your type of workloads for it. Let's see. Oh, a couple of other best practices. Always separate new water from other supplements. You don't have to separate it for long, like we're talking maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Just give your body time to process what you're giving it before you give it something else. Consider the fact that when you're digesting food, when your food hits your tongue, the taste buds on your tongue identify the food, and it's already preparing the pancreas to create enzymes to digest that food, right? So you're preparing it. And if you eat the food slowly, you will have the processes to digest it, and then you eat something else. It creates new enzymes. The liver starts producing bile for fats and proteins, and you digest it. But if you mix everything together in a big clump, you don't have the ability to create all of the components you need for it. So this is similar with any supplement, especially liquid ones. Always take them diluted for one, never take them straight. I know some people can take them straight, but ideally never take it straight because your mouth will take the majority of it if it's deficient. Put it in water, put it in smoothie, get it into your digestive system so your whole body gets its share equally. So to summarize the best practices, for the weak, the young, and the old, always start slow and start small and do alternate days at the minimum, maybe even every 3 days, right? Be consistent with whatever you're doing, be consistent. Dilute it in food or fluid or something. Stay away from other supplements by at least a couple of minutes. And then the last one is always keep supplements away from meds. Any medication of any type. They're all synthetics, and you will lose the supplement. It will flush them out. So, and it can cause reactions even with the supplement. So always separate medications from any liquid or good supplements by at least an hour, possibly more, or a meal. So if you're taking your meds before your meal, you could take new water after your meal. If you take them after a meal, then keep at least an hour between when you take your meds and when you take new water or any other liquid supplement that you have. And again, any reactions that happen, this is typically not because they're allergic to new water. It's because of a health crisis, body's cleansing too fast, or it's because they took too much too fast and their body's not ready for it yet. A couple of final thoughts. In these times that we're dealing with now, one of the most significant focus areas should be to keep our body strong, right? So if you want to keep your body strong, you want to avoid deficiencies. And to avoid deficiencies in your body, take new water daily, right? You're going to work up to that, but take it daily. And if there is anything that I would say is a part of daily life at some amount, it would be your basic building blocks, which is in new water, and it's the ability to transport nutrients into cells and take waste products out. And you want to keep balanced. So emotional balance is probably one of the most significant deficiencies in these times because of all the stresses. We hear all this stuff on media, etc., and it causes us to be anxious. One consideration might be limiting how much you watch these things that are sensationalism. We know what's out there. Refeeding your mind with this stuff, especially at night, is not a good plan. If you want to keep up to date with what's happening, do that in the morning and let your body cycle itself down by bedtime. You think about it at bedtime, you're not going to go to sleep, right? Your mind's going to be working through that. You want to reduce stress. Now, there are tools to do that. When I test people, I have a number of tools. Some are exercise processes you can do, and I have other very significant tools that will actually clear stress and keep your body sympathetic and parasympathetic balanced. But whatever you do, whether you do Tai Chi, whether you do some exercise, try to do that as a daily practice, right? It doesn't have to be a lot, but you want to reduce your stress. Try to get to sleep before 10 p.m., right? Going to bed at midnight, you lose some of that deep sleep cycle stuff that you would get. Going to sleep at night, one of the primary things that hinder that would be LED lighting. You may or may not have heard of LEDs, but they are LED lighting causing that impact, but they are actually a blue light. It is faked out with phosphors, but it's blue light, and blue is the biggest component at the brightest time of the day. So when you have bright LED lights on in the last 3 hours before bed, your brain is switching itself back to middle of the day, wake up, become acidic. You don't want that. So reduce your light levels and try to not have LEDs in the rooms where you spend your last 2 to 3 hours, right? That way you don't have your brain combating itself. You're trying to cycle down and become alkaline and create melatonin, and you watch those lights and they're saying, oh, it's daytime, let's become acidic. That's why you wake up with coffee. Coffee's acidic. It makes your body more acidic and it gets you to pop your eyes open, right? So enable your body to get to sleep, reduce LED lighting at nighttime, have moderate exercise every day, something, go for a walk. 30 minutes is all it needs. Just do something on a regular basis to keep your body moving, and be kind to yourself and others, right? In today's climate, it's easy to get snappy with people, and that is actually a reflection of what's happening inside. If we're deficient on minerals, we're going to be deficient on vitamins. And vitamin C, your B complex, and vitamin D. If you had 3 foundational vitamins that you must have always, especially in this last 20, 30 years going forward, you need those every day, a good quality version of them. If you don't know of a good quality one, I can refer you to good ones. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, right? And it actually creates the 3 chemicals in your brain that keep you balanced. You don't have vitamin C, you won't feel balanced. It also helps balance chemo hormones. So if you feel snappy and the claws come out, you're deficient, and it will be minerals, and your vitamins are completely depleted. You do high exercise, you need vitamin C. You need extra vitamin C. You could need easily 2,000 to 3,000 milligram a day, right, of vitamin C. You do hard work, take an extra 1,000 milligrams when you're done. Because if you don't, your body will have oxidative stress in the liquids, in your blood, in the cells of your body, and it will take all of the vitamin C that you've got, and it will use that as an antioxidant to balance your body, because that's the crisis point, and you will have nothing left to balance you chemically. So your brain will go out of balance, your hormones will go out of balance, and everything will be lost. If you get stressed, the first thing you do is burn Bs. You burn your B12, you burn B complex. You don't get to be stressed for free. It takes fuel. It's your B complex vitamins that it burns for that. So make sure you have a good quality B complex. And if you're in high stress, B12 is one of the key components to build energy. So if you haven't got B12, you're always going to be tired. If you're always tired, your adrenals will have to create energy for you through adrenaline, and your adrenals will start depleting, and then you're going to hit adrenal fatigue at some point. So this is a catch-22 because of stress, physical stress, emotional stress. So be kind to yourself. Make sure that you don't get deficient. Make sure that new water is part of your daily life at some level, because that's what's going to enable your body to repair itself and to give you the quality of life that you'd like. Rob, over to you.
Thank you very much, Randy. That's absolutely amazing. Some great information here on how we use Black Oxygen. I know you referred to it as New Water, which, of course, New Water was the previous name of the company, and then they morphed into BlackOxgen Organics. But Randy, thank you so much for sharing so many different aspects of how this can impact our health and how we can help other people. I think too many times that we feel like if a little bit is good, then a lot is better. So we have to be careful with that. And so in any case, it's been great having you here, Randy. I really appreciate you dropping by. And
My
people
pleasure.
can contact you, and you're on the scientific advisory board and here at BlackOxygen. And really excited to be able to, let me just make sure I muted everybody out. I'm really excited to be able to have this information that we can share with others. So everybody, let's give Randy a big thank you for all his contribution.